Alrighty, hello software, welcome to another object-oriented programming video. So in this video, we're going to be talking about enums. Alright, so enums are my absolute favorite thing. If you've ever worked on a coding project with me, you probably have seen me using an enum. They're absolutely marvelous. Alright, so what an enum is I view it as kind of like the intersection between arrays and classes and objects, right? And so an enum stores an array of unchangeable objects. They're really beautiful, but I think the best way to kind of understand them is through an example, right? Like many coding concepts, right? So the example I'm going to use is a real-life robotics example involving the FRC 2019 game. So in FRC 2019, we had one of these really tall-looking rocket ships that had these sets of holes in them. And I've divided these holes, right? These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes into 3 levels: the low level, the middle level, and the high level. Okay, and in each level there are 2 different sub levels, one for this main center hole and 2 for these side holes right here. Okay, and each of them have that. And so our robot for that year looked like this. It looks a little scary, but it's really not that hard to understand. It's pretty simple, right? And in order to put objects into all of these holes, right, it had an elevator, right, the things that circled in red, and this kind of bridge looking thing. And this elevator was able to raise to any height you desired, right? But because these holes are at very specific heights, we need some way to store the heights of all these different positions, all these 9 different positions, okay? And we want to do it as elegantly and as easy to use as possible. All right, so this is where enums come in. All right, so let's make an enum that stores the height of all the 9 positions on this rocket ship. Okay, so the way we're going to start with doing this, I have just a generic main method. We've seen this before, right? I hope we've seen this before. And I'm going to make an enum, right? So an enum stands for enumeration, but that doesn't really matter. I call it enum I'm going to call it enum rocket heights, just like that. Okay, and the way I define the kind of the values of an enum is just by listing it out, right? So the common practice in this list is to always use the capital case, and if you ever have a space, use an underscore, right? So in this case, right, I have the levels of low, middle, and high. So I'm just going to say low, comma, middle, comma, high. And that's it. And so to kind of create or to use our enum, right, we first, we just say rocket heights, and I'm going to call it height, right, equals, and we assign it a value. So say we want our rocket height to start at the low level. So I just say rocket heights dot low, right? And I can print this value out. So if I just say system.out.println, just to give you a raw example, I can say just println rocket height dot middle, right? And if I can also print the height variable itself, right? And if I run this, we get middle and low, right? So I just, in the first print statement, I'm just physically printing the rocket heights dot middle value, and it just prints middle out. And for this one, I'm printing the value I stored in it, which is rocket heights dot low, so it prints low out. Okay, and so we can do using enum simplifies things a lot, right? So say I have this rocket height, I'm gonna actually call this a desired height, right? And it's really easy to kind of use these enums and kind of do logic with them, right? With an array, for example, an array you would have to define an index and check if your variable equals that index, right? It's really messy, not very simple. Enums are more beautiful, right? So kind of an example way of using an enum would be kind of using a switch case statement. So if I do a switch case, and if you're not familiar with switch case statements, they're kind of just a glorified if-else-if statement. Okay, So I use the switch statement and I switch on desired height, and I can make all the cases, right? So case low, I'm gonna say system.out.println go to the low height, and then break. I'm gonna copy this for all the other heights. So case low and then middle, and we just say go middle height and go high or high. And you can also just see, like, right, because I'm not using an array of values, right, with specifying an index, the code is super readable, right? I can just say, okay, if the elevator case is low, then I'm gonna say go to the low height, right? It's really easy to read your code and understand what's happening. That's why I really like enums, right? And so if I run this, right, it'll run through the switch case statement, reach this case and say go to the low height, right? Really easy to use, really readable, really elegant, okay? But if you go back to our rocket ship, right, we need to store physical heights, right? We need to store values. Like we need to store the value of the height from the ground of all 9 of these holes, right? Really, there's only 6 heights because these two pairs are at the same height. So all 6 heights we need to store the heights of, right? And so the way we do this, right, is that enums can almost act like objects, right? You probably saw from the syntax that it's very similar syntax, but we can go a step further by adding a constructor, okay? And so what I'm going to do, add a semicolon here, I'm going to say public rocket height, and I'm going to give it the parameters, right? Remember we discussed it in the last video. I'm going to give the parameters of int, or I'll make it a double actually, double center height, so center hole height, and double side height, right? And I'm going to make 2 local variables. I'm going to call it private center height and private. Actually, you know what? I'll make this private. I'll make it public. I'll make it double side height, right? And then all I gotta do here is just say this dot center height. Remember that this references the objects, the member variable of the enum, right? So this dot center height equals center height, and this dot side height equals side height, right? And now all I gotta do is go up here and say and pass in the values that we want. So say for the low one, let's say the center height is I'll just simplify it, so 1 feet and half a foot for the side height. For here we'll go 3 feet and 2.5 for the side, and here we'll go 5 feet and 4.5 for the side. Okay. And something you'll see, I have an error here, right? So something for enums is that the constructor always has to be private, right? I don't want to be accessing the constructor of this enum outside of the enum itself. It should only be accessed through these parentheses here. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to say this private, and the error will go away. Okay, and so just like that, right, by using the constructor, by using these 2 local variables, and by passing in values into the parentheses of each of the items in the enums list, I'm successfully able to store all of these 6 values, right? So say I have the desired height, I want to go low, right? Now I'm able to kind of define what going low means and the 2 sub low values inside, right? So say I want to, so for example, like I want to say the center height is, and I'm going to say desired height dot center height, and then I can add a space, and the side height is, I'm gonna kind of break this up a little bit. Sorry about that. There we go. And the side height is colon desired height dot side height. For run this, I'm not going to do for this for all the other ones because kind of you get the point, it's pretty redundant. But for run this, right, the switch case is going to execute this low case because I set the desired height to low. And as we see the center height is 1.0 as we defined up here. And the side height is 0.5 as we defined over here. So I hope you can see that an enum is a really neat, tidy, and readable way to store permanent constant values in a really easy to use structure. So I hope you like enums after this video. I hope you use it in your code. It brings me happiness when I see enum. And that's about it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.